none of it guarantees that you get any sort of employment. I also did a lot of mistakes in the application. I went for my TOEFL without any preparation. Not mandate you to do any course. If you get a teaching assistantship in a particular quarter, half of your fees is remitted back to you. GSRs, student research opportunities, they'll definitely pay you more than teaching. Pay you more in terms of fee waiver. GSR opportunities, I feel, for master students can be super hard to get. So you will have to work hard towards your employment process, interview process. Get into NASA because of one such reference from UCSD.
Hello everyone, welcome to College Dunia Study Abroad. My name is Anshika and today we have with us Pratik, who is pursuing his Masters in Computer Science from UCSD. Hi Pratik, welcome to the channel.
Thank you. Thanks Anshika for having me here today.
It's a pleasure to have you here. So, can you begin with providing a brief background about yourself?
Sure. So, hi, I'm Pratik. I'm currently a second year Masters in Computer Science and Engineering student at UC San Diego. I did my undergrad in computer engineering from the Pune Institute of Computer Technology in Pune, India. I completed my undergrad in 2020 and started my Masters in fall 2021. So, I had 1 year of work experience in between. I got my admit for UCSD in fall 2020 though, and it was the pandemic because of which I deferred my admit and worked for 1 year in a startup during that particular period. My research and technical interests have been in artificial intelligence, natural language processing, trying to use AI for social good. So those are the areas that I'm interested in. Since arriving at UCSD, I've been focusing on doing research along the same lines. And last summer, at the end of the first year of my master's, I was a machine learning intern at Apple. Currently, I am a visiting researcher at NASA under the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. And yeah, I'll be graduating soon in June 2023.
Oh wow, congratulations, and you've earned a lot of great milestones throughout. So, more about you. How did you think about pursuing a master's? And you've been one of those students who have always been at the top of the class. Your GRE score is so great. If you would like to tell more about your GRE score and other scores to the viewers.
Sure. So during my undergrad, I think I decided to do a master's probably at the end of my second year. So until then, I was exploring all the fields, what I want to do, what interests I have. During second year, second semester, I would say that's the period when I really started to look into machine learning, and I felt this is something that I really enjoyed to do. And it's also something I could foresee the industry may require more of in the coming years. So at that particular period, I felt the United States was a good place to be at to do machine learning work and research. So keeping that in mind, at the end of the second year, I decided that I'll go for a master's in the US. And accordingly, till then, of course, I was maintaining a GPA just like as any other engineering student. But then considering and keeping this in mind that I need to go to the US to a good school, a good GPA would always, it will never hurt you. So it was important to just make sure that every semester I just maintain the very minimum that you require to get into a good school in the US. With a 10-point scale being maintained in the University of Pune, which I was a part of, I thought that 9 GPA will be a good place to be at, to continue. So every semester that used to be one thing to just make sure that I maintain a GPA above 9. Yeah. Anything above is even great, but at least 9 seems to keep you in a good, comfortable position.
For sure.
Since then it was also important for the US, you need to give your GRE and your TOEFL. The GRE examination, I feel, so at that particular time, I hadn't thought that, there will be something like a pandemic or that I'll work for a year or so. So the plan was to immediately start a master's once I complete my undergrad. Keeping that in mind, I wanted to give my GRE third year, second semester, so that then I have 5 to 6 months to prepare for the rest of my application. So third year, second semester, I completely dedicated it towards my GRE. So from December to March, those 3 to 4 months, I was, I kept all of my other projects and commitments aside and was, solely focusing on the GRE. And over those 3 months, then I feel as Indians, we have a natural instinct or a better idea and grasp of quant than the verbal section. So the focus that I had to give towards quant wasn't as high, I would say. So I was just brushing up on the concepts that we are probably already aware of in linear algebra numbers. But it was more about the verbal section, with the vocabulary and, everything else that follows along. So I spent 2-3 months doing that, enrolled myself in some online classes, question banks, but pretty much self-coached myself and using those around March 2019, that's the period when I gave my GRE. Thankfully, I managed to get a score of 332, which then really felt me, very comfortable. It made me feel very comfortable because then I had this idea that, okay, I can probably get into a good school now, with a good GRE, a GPA. But still, there were a few other things to touch base on, like TOEFL. So TOEFL, I feel once you are prepared really good enough for GRE, the TOEFL I think is relatively easier. I probably underestimated a bit, I feel, because like I went for my TOEFL without any preparation at all. So I gave my TOEFL, I had to do an internship in the summer. So at that summer, I interned with ISRO. And once I was back from there, I just went to the TOEFL center, with actually, I would say probably just one day of preparation. So based on that, I got a TOEFL of 111 on 120, but I feel I could have done better there. So if you have the chance to work on your TOEFL, definitely do so. Especially I feel the speaking section, I had a score of 27 on 30, which didn't really hurt me here at UCSD. But I feel that, maintaining a good speaking score will really help you with any opportunities along the lines of teaching or instruction in your master's. So if you want to do any employment, they sometimes do look for your TOEFL speaking score. So I then gave my TOEFL, thankfully was able to maintain my GPA till fourth year first semester when we submit our applications. And based on these three scores and my tendency to work in machine learning, I did some internships along those lines, wrote a few research papers. So all of this combined together made for an application which helped me get into UCSD.
That's great. मतलब TOEFL obviously I feel कि it's more like a language test जो सिर्फ एक ballpark number होना चाहिए. People expect anything above 25 is good out of 30.
Right.
So because the GRE score is so great, and especially engineering side में we see quant score more than the verbal score. But yeah, Indians के लिए verbal में I think थोड़ा time लगता है because those words are really typical and हम use नहीं करते अपनी normal vocabulary में वो.
Right. And उसमें भी आपको ये ध्यान में रखना बहुत जरूरी है कि the grammar is also equally important. तो हमें मतलब बहुत बच्चे ऐसे करते हैं कि वो सिर्फ वर्ड्स पे ध्यान देते हैं, like you memorize the words, that's one part of the cycle. I definitely feel उससे 10 to 15 points improve होगा स्कोर में, but the last 10 points will really come down to how well you can figure this up with sentence formation, sentence structuring. So जितना practice करोगे, the more questions you solve, I feel that can really help with the verbal score.
For sure. And also you've planned so much. पहले से you decided to give your GRE, TOEFL. I think planning is really important when you come to the US because सारे टेस्ट के लिए you have to prepare and then fill the exam, go to a center, वो सब एकदम typical time consuming task होता है. मतलब 3 months I believe कि सबको देना चाहिए. And also maintaining the GPA, which is really a focus point because GPA यहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा matter करता है, I believe.
Right, yeah, definitely. Especially in a lot of schools in California, I feel, well, pretty much everywhere in the US, but in California especially, I have seen a good GPA can really, it may not just be sufficient to get you in, but it is definitely necessary to maintain a good GPA to get into a good school.
Yeah. So coming to the colleges that you applied to, how many colleges did you apply to? Because you might have divided into moderate, ambitious, and safe universities.
Right. So I had applied to, I would say, around 8 schools. In my ambitious, I had applied to Stanford, I had applied to Georgia Tech, I had applied to CMU, and I had applied to UCSD. So these were my 4 ambitious schools. Then I had applied in moderate, I had applied to University of Maryland College Park, I had applied to University of Massachusetts Amherst, and I also had applied to University of Texas at Austin. I would say that was probably between ambitious and mod. And then on the safe side, I had applied to University of Southern California and I had applied to Ohio State University. So I would say that comes down to 9 applications technically, not 8. So 9 applications. Out of these, one thing which I feel I need to highlight here is that I had applied only to MSCS. So I kind of had this thing that, as an Indian, core courses mein, we believe a lot more. So I applied only to MSCS programs everywhere. And in that too, I feel ki I was being very honest in my application, wherein if I worked in machine learning, everywhere I put machine learning is the thing that I want to do. And this worked out really well with even in ambitious schools with UCSD. I was able to get in with this, and I was able to get into moderate and safe schools as well. So I got 5 admits, USC, Ohio State University, University of Massachusetts Amherst, Maryland College Park, and University of California San Diego. So I had these 5 admits, got rejects from Stanford, Georgia Tech, CMU, and UTA. But I feel when I look back and when I discuss this with others who managed to get in there, I feel with machine learning, in an area which is as hot as machine learning, you are pretty much competing with the top 100, 200 students of your batch or your aspirants throughout the world. So that becomes very, very competitive. But looking back, maybe areas like systems, operating system, databases, networking, they have slightly less competition. Still very competitive, still very ambitious. But I kept machine learning as my focus area, MSCS everywhere, and these were the schools that I managed to get into.
That's great. I think एक admit ही होता है जो चाहिए होता है, and you got one of the ambitious colleges, which is really great. So congratulations on that. And the application process, I think you've pointed out really well. Can you point out some things in the SOP that you made sure you put in there?
So with the statement of purpose, I feel like, this is something that I can talk about retrospectively. So I feel I also did a lot of mistakes in the application back then. Like, I feel they don't really care about a lot of the cliche stuff that we are otherwise think we need to put in, like, proverbs or when I was a child, I liked computers. I think all of that can be removed. That's not the important part. What is important is how much of a clarity you have about what you want to do in your masters. How do you tie your past experiences with your present ambition to your future vision? So this sort of a mapping, the better it reflects in the SOP, I feel it is really good. I feel in my case with machine learning, I was able to highlight the type of work that I had done previously, what I want to do now, and where does UCSD fit into this case? What are the faculties at UCSD that have really captured my attention? What facilities, courses, or what is it at UCSD which is tying with this goal of mine? And where do I see myself after my master's? So all of these things were clearly highlighted in my SOP, which I feel must have made a difference. But with that being said, some things I could have probably improved on, like, I did have some of the cliche stuff, probably added a bit more technical details in my SOP, which could have instead just been in the resume. Like the resume speaks for itself. So those sort of things kind of could have been cut down. But I feel the clarity in thought is really important when you highlight your SOP.
I mean, the college is good. You say the college is good. You can go on pages saying कि college अच्छा है बहुत, but then you have to say कि मैं क्यों fit in होता हूँ इस university में, or maybe what things I can provide to the university. It's not just the university providing things to you.
Right. वो clarity बहुत जरूरी है, क्योंकि बहुत बार like हम लोग बहुत common words use करते हैं. We just say like, I'm a hardworking individual interested in team abilities, and ये ध्यान में रखना बहुत जरूरी है कि there are 1,000 more applicants with you, half of which are using the exact same language. So how does the university differentiate between you and the other candidate? So the more specific you are, the more precise information you provide, the more anecdotal you are compared to, जितने आप experiences के बारे में बात करोगे आपके खुद के, that really reflects instead of you describing yourself as being someone. Like let your actions speak for you. So the more your actions, जितना आप खुद के काम के बारे में लिखोगे SOP में, या जितने specific words use करोगे, the better it is compared to saying like, I'm a good individual, or just using adjectives don't really help.
That's true. I mean, that's some good pointers for people who are looking, or just online इतने सारे SOP मिलते हैं, but they have the same thing that they follow. Student था, when I was young, I was interested into computer science. Then I got into gaming, more interested into computer science. But I think it's really important to keep the focus there. Can we go now into the course? How is the faculty there? How is your course structured? I mean, how many semesters, how many credits?
Yeah, sure. So with Masters of Computer Science and Engineering at UCSD, you have to complete 40 credits towards your graduation. Each course has 4 credits. So essentially, once you are done with 10 courses, you can technically graduate. Within these 10 courses, you are supposed to do 3 courses in one particular depth area. So you can think of it as your specialization. So those are 3 courses. Then you have to do 3 courses in breadth areas. So that includes system, theory, and application. So in each of these, you are supposed to do 1 course each. So that becomes 3 depth, 3 breadth, and then you have 4 courses of electives. So you can take any courses in there to count for your graduation. So once you complete these 10 courses, you are eligible to graduate. One thing that I like about UCSD is this is the only structure in place. So at any given point, they do not mandate you to do any course throughout this master's. So, you can select like, every one of us can do a different course and still be eligible to graduate. So that's a good part about the program. Apart from this, you have many depth areas to select from. So you have almost 8 to 10 depth areas now, including not just artificial intelligence, but you have got bioinformatics, bioengineering, robotics, databases, systems, networks. So there are many options to select from HCI, which makes for a good experience. The UCSD's interdisciplinary approach and focus on making sure that departments collaborate together is also paying good rewards, because you get to do courses under other departments which also count towards your degree. Apart from this, you may also find a potential research advisor there, could also get some funding from those departments for any projects that you do. So that makes for a good experience. We have a quarterly system at UCSD. So throughout the year, you have 3 quarters, fall, winter, and spring, apart from the summer quarter. In each quarter, you are supposed to be enrolled in 12 credits. So technically, with the 40 credit requirement, you can graduate as early as 4 quarters. So if you start in September, you can graduate by next December. But the university does allow you to graduate up to a maximum of 6 quarters. So till 2 years later, June, you can graduate till that particular point.
Got it. But then having the quarter system, 3 courses एक semester में लेना थोड़ा tedious नहीं है? I mean, the time period is really short.
Definitely, I feel I see people being very split about this in a way that if you are someone who really wants to go deep into a course, explore it, really exploit it, 10 weeks can be very little, because before week 1, week 2, your midterms come, and it just keeps coming towards you. Once you are done with it, immediately next new set of 3 courses, again 10 weeks. So it's like you are attending consecutive boot camps of sorts. So that can be very demanding if you are not used to the grind. But the good point about it is you get to explore a lot more. So while someone in a semester system may do 4 courses over a year, 2 courses in each semester, we get to probably explore a maximum of 9 courses. So that gives you a lot more options to look around. But I feel, that it really comes down to your personal preference, because with a quarterly system, it can also be very demanding. So being able to do something outside of your coursework requires a lot more hard work, attention, and time management, compared to where if you have 2 courses over a semester system, it can be easier to get some time out or get few weeks where you can really focus on other initiatives. But UCSD does support us with providing us opportunity to take research credits or take seminars. Or if you are a teaching assistant also, you get to be enrolled in credit. So that way you don't really have to do 2-3 courses every time.
Got it. You can take those dummy credits and fill the 12 credit requirement, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Got it. Okay, so how's the tuition fee at your university for the whole course? How much did you pay?
Here we are supposed to pay fees every quarter. For each quarter, the fees are around $11,000, including everything. And living expenses, I would say every month, would be a personal preference, but I would say you can wrap up in around $4,000, so $4,000 to $5,000 per quarter. So for 3 months, I would say like $1,300 to $1,400. The rents in California are slightly higher, in San Diego especially. So you pay around $900 to $1,100 for an apartment, and moreover than $200 to $300 of other expenses. So I would say $4,000 per quarter for the living, and $11,000. So technically $15,000 for 1 quarter. And you can graduate. So 15,000 would be roughly 12 lakh rupees per quarter. And you can graduate anywhere between 4 to 6 quarters. So I would say this goes up to 48 lakhs se leke up to 70 lakhs. So that's the rough range in which you can expect to spend your money. This is assuming you don't do anything else at all. You don't get an internship, anything. So 48 to 70 is the range. Assuming you get a teaching assistantship here, which is a quarterly appointment, so you need to get it for every quarter. If you get a teaching assistantship in a particular quarter, half of your fees is remitted back to you. So you get 50% of fee remittance, and they pay you around $2,500 per month.
Okay, that's great.
Technically, if you see, if you have $15,000 ka expense, now you get $5,000 remission and $2,500 into 3. So $12,500 can be returned back from whatever you spend. So from the 15,000, 12,500 comes back. So technically you are only spending 2,000 to 3,000 per quarter. So in that case, for that particular semester, your 12 lakh expense came down to 2 lakh or 3 lakh. So that really helps. Apart from this, your summer internship, you can earn anywhere between $20,000 to $25,000. So overall, I feel that, even if you manage to get a teaching assistantship for 2 out of, say you graduate in 5 quarters, you get a TA for 2 quarters, you can still wrap up your masters in around 20 lakh rupees. I personally had a teaching assistantship all 6 quarters, so thankfully I haven't really spent much, and the masters has pretty much been net positive, I would say.
That's great to hear. I like the 50% to tuition fee remission, क्योंकि कई colleges में US में ऐसा नहीं होता. Thankfully मेरे college में भी it's like if you are a GRE or a GT, you get 100% 100% fee paid by
That's great.
your employer. So even that's a good point, क्योंकि US में लोग बाग आते हैं, so they just see the fee, but they
Right.
don't consider things like GTA or GRAs. I think it's good to see and check कि कितना pay करता है and how easy it is to get one. And ऐसा fake ये सोच के नहीं आना चाहिए जैसे कि you will definitely get one, because
Yeah.
बहुत competition होता है, I believe, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely. And उसमें भी ऐसा है कि for a lot of people, the reason they are hesitant about the US is the fees and the exorbitant expenses. But अगर आपको कोई public school में admission मिल रहा हो, generally getting employment opportunities at public school, I would say, is slightly easier compared to a private university. So
Sure.
do look into this, and also do look, as you rightfully pointed out, what's the probability of getting one? Because there are few universities which pay really well for an employment, but then those employment themselves are very rare to get. So I mean, a good balance between them is really important.
Yeah. So how easy or how difficult was it for you to get a TA, because you were all the way around, you were a TA and now you're a GSR. So was it easy? How much percent of the student in your class have some opportunity like this?
So I would say it gets easier every quarter, especially as you amass more experience and more coursework, the probability of you getting a TA increases. In the first quarter, I would say probably 2 in 10 probably got 2 in 10 or 11 people got a TA. So for CSE department, we have around 670 students in our department, 600 to 700 students, and there are around 120 TAs. So you can expect 1 in 5 will be able to get a TA. Yeah. Over here, the PhDs will have more experience than you. The second year masters will have more experience than you. So in the initial semesters, it was definitely hard for everyone to get a TA. Even then, I would say the good part is you can apply to other departments also. So if over there they don't have equal competition, it's easier to get a TA. So in my case, I TA'd first in the Department of Education Studies, then I TA'd at the Data Science Institute, and then now I TA'd at CSE. But the good part at UCSD is, irrespective of the department, you are paid exactly the same for a teaching assistantship. So that becomes really easy, and it becomes really convenient then, because you don't have to stick to your home department. You can TA anywhere and be paid the same. It was difficult for students in the first quarter, but then I saw more people getting one in second, even more getting it in third. And now people who are in their fourth, fifth, sixth quarters, I feel then it definitely gets a lot more easier, because then you are also eligible for graduate courses, which you yourself did the previous year. So that becomes easier. With GSRs that you mentioned, I feel GSRs are really subjective. And it really comes down to how good of a rapport you can build with a particular professor. So they aren't generally advertised, these opportunities. You need to reach out to professors, work with them. I mean, once in a while they'll advertise something if they have funding or they are looking for students. But I know a lot more professors who do have funding and don't necessarily publicly advertise it. So once you start working with them, if you spend some time, they'll decide to fund you from your next quarter.
Got it. It's more like a thing जब तुम एक project पे काम करोगे और उस professor की research में you'll contribute, right?
Right.
Okay.
So
and GTA
you would want to spend, GTA is more like just teaching assistantship. So, helping a professor with their course, you can do office hours, grading the papers, setting up exams, proctoring. GSR, which is just student researcher, you work on a research problem. Based on your performance, the professors, your advisor will decide how they want to fund you.
Got it. So is there any difference between a GTA and a GSR in terms of pay and, say, workload?
So I would say with GSRs, student research opportunities, they'll definitely pay you more than teaching. Pay you more in terms of fee waiver. With teaching assistantship, you get a 50% waiver. For research, you get a 100% waiver. But GSR contracts for master's students are not necessarily standardized. So if you get a standard GSR, these conditions will hold true, where you get a 100% fee waiver and slightly more salary, I think around 2,700 per month compared to 2,500 for the TA. But GSR opportunities, I feel, for master's students can be super hard to get, because the professors want their funding to be put in a place where they can get long-term rewards. So with the master's program, you graduate quickly, so them funding you may not necessarily give them the rewards that they seek. So it gets slightly trickier there. So you need to be able to convince them that you will be here for 4, 5, 6 quarters, and not just focus on your coursework. So that's one part of it. And they would probably prefer still, doing this for PhD. So I know a lot of people who have this sort of a setting with the advisor where they don't necessarily get funded for their research directly, but then the advisor might provide them with a TA for their own courses or something like that. So some sort of an setting could help in that case, an informal setting with your advisor. But I feel in general, GSRs will pay you more, but then it's very tricky to get one as a master's student.
Got it. At least you get an opportunity. I think that's the biggest point to note here. Yeah. So how are the career fairs in your university? I mean, UCST is pretty famous, one of the ambitious colleges in every Indian's list. So how are the career fairs, events in the college that help you get a full-time or an internship?
So I feel that is one area where UCSD can probably improve upon, at least for the CSE department. I know for other departments, things can, the experience may vary. At CSE, I feel UCSD is slightly more research centric. So there are career fairs, there are talks, there are networking sessions. But if you are in this assumption, which a lot of Indian students are looking at their own on-campus placements in undergrad, you don't have this sort of a thing here, wherein like an employer walks in, you give your resume, and immediately you have your interviews or something. So you will have to work hard towards your employment process, interview process. UCSD will help you with networking. They'll invite speakers or managers once in a while, but none of it guarantees that you get any sort of employment from those events.
Got it.
We do have some career fairs, but I feel given the batch size, they may not necessarily be sufficient at this moment, and that's something that UCSD is also actively working upon. But for us, I feel a lot of startups from San Diego do attend. You have other companies attending too. Qualcomm is one of the major employers here, with its headquarters being in San Diego. So Qualcomm, Nvidia, companies like those do make a difference. We also have representatives from Amazon coming, and you have talks being given from researchers from pretty much every company. With UCSD being very aggressive on research, there are very good tie-ups and collaborations with the industry, with active projects too. But career fairs, I feel like, if the assumption is that, it will help you get a job, I feel that is one place where UCSD CSE can improve on. Right now, I feel students have had to work hard towards getting an employment.
Got it. I mean, yeah, in US, it's more like you go to the job portal, you apply it. Obviously, the university name on your resume matters, but then the career fairs are not so much helpful here, I believe.
Yeah.
So how about the full-time roles? What's the average pay a person who's studying in UCSD should expect? And you also interned at Apple last summer. So how was your experience?
With full-time opportunities, I think the salaries, I do not think that just being at UCSD can be a shortcoming or an advantage. Whatever is the standard pay for that position, you can expect that they'll respect your affiliation with UCSD too. The salaries for an SD, now assuming again depends on work experience, but if we consider a new grad with no experience graduating from UCSD, salaries for software development roles can go anywhere between 125,000 to, I would say, 155,000, depending on the company and the position. For machine learning roles, it can go anywhere between $140,000 to $170,000, I would say. Fintech, high frequency trading firms will pay you a lot more, but for a standard tech company, I think 125 to 160 of base seems to be the range. And in terms of stock options, they can go anywhere between 100,000 to 150,000 vested over 4 years. And joining bonuses around 20 to 40K seems to be the range. So that's the sort of compensation I see here. Pretty much standard, I would say, for a US school. In terms of my own experience at Apple, so I interned as a machine learning intern in the AI/ML organization for Siri. And I was responsible for working on offensive and hate speech detection for Siri specifically. I interned at their Seattle office, so which is kind of like, different from their main Apple headquarters. I did have a chance to work at the Apple headquarters too. Overall, I would say it was a great experience. AI/ML teams at Apple, while they are very selective, once you manage to get in, you probably get as good as an experience as possible. The infrastructure is really good. They have some of the best researchers out there, working for them, and that really adds a lot to the value. Apple really, I would say, kind of pampers their interns too, so you can expect to get a lot of goodies. They provide you with, probably the best corporate housing out there, some really good infrastructure, and all of it really adds to the experience. I feel you get to interact with every person in the Apple hierarchy, right up to the CEO, Tim Cook. You get to talk to a lot of people, and that really helps in the overall experience. I feel that internship really added to my value, not just because I feel we do machine learning a lot otherwise too in our coursework, in our projects, but how to really deploy this at scale, and actually looking at how Apple approaches these problems really added to the way I think about problems and solve them.
Yeah, they're really picky about the people they choose for their internships because I think they have really less openings and they choose the best out there.
Right, yeah.
So how was your experience at UCSD? How was the city, the community mix? Some good and bad times that you have at UCSD.
So I would say, one of the reasons I was really looking forward to joining UCSD is also its climate. San Diego, I would say, has the best climate in the US, and not just with any biases, but having actually experienced it. Things are getting trickier now, I feel, climate change and all, but it's still as good as a climate as you can get, especially for an Indian. Temperatures are always between 10 to 16 degrees Celsius or upwards, which means you don't really have to spend a lot of time adapting yourself to the weather, climate. 300 days of sunshine, so really helps as an Indian. You don't see any snowfall or heavy snowing or rains here, so it's a very pleasant weather all around, I would say. The city has some, probably the best beaches. You get to do a lot of nature activities. If you're a nature person, I would say, San Diego has a lot to offer to you, right from skiing being there at a 1 hour drive from here, to our university having its own beaches. So, you don't even have to go around anywhere to be able to enjoy things. And San Diego as a city, I feel, is really convenient, has good public transportation. The university itself is based in La Jolla. It's one part of the San Diego city, but I would say it's one of those more richer communities, I would say. So don't expect to see a lot of people around. It's a very high profile area, but with the university itself hosting almost 50,000 students, you have a lot of hustle going on the streets. But most of it's being the student community. So you have to travel down to the downtown for actually getting the city experience, I would say. So the university is slightly on the off side. I do see a few students complaining with respect to the social life. If you're more of a clubbing person or more of an indoor person, with the city being one of the tourist attractions, it has more of the nature things to do, more of the I would say socializing stuff to do than like say clubs, or that's not more of a San Diego thing, I would say. But overall the climate is good, the city is good, and I'm sure everyone definitely has a great time being here with and also LA is quite close by, so there are a lot of things to do here. So overall, I would say you spend more money, but definitely worth it for the experience.
Got it. I think UCSD has a lot to offer. San Diego in itself is such a great place to live. So, So, is there any suggestion for young aspirants who are looking to come for a master's in computer science at UCSD?
Sure. And before I get to that, also to answer a couple of your last points on good and bad things at SD, I feel, some of the good things for me have been just the type of courses that are offered here. I really get to explore a lot. It's not just core courses. Like I wanted to do a core degree, but I feel I've really got to learn a lot about, I would say more of the side areas of computer science, which may not always explore. So it has been really good to get a formalized coursework structure to be able to explore those things. Interdisciplinary research is really good. And I'm myself more of a research person, I would say. So the opportunities I got here have really helped me. I was able to get into NASA because of one such reference from UCSD. So all of those really add to my high points, I feel. In terms of the lows, I feel, UCSD is a great school, which means you have, some of the best people coming in here, which can make it very competitive. The environment is super competitive, which can, after a point, take a toll on you if you're not used to it. I do see people once in a while feeling their lows, having that point. But then pretty much every student in the US, I feel, does go through that. But that's something you can anticipate. Even if you live in the best city in the world, you can anticipate those lows. And the university does expect you to figure out a lot of things yourself, which can be tricky if you're used to spoon feeding, because there may be deadlines which they won't tell you about, and you are supposed to look up online, know when things are supposed to be done, and get done with those things. So I feel I have learned those lessons the hard way myself too. But after a point, I think everyone does figure it out. And if someone new is coming in, what advice do I have for them? I feel, inculcating these habits, making sure that you gradually learn the independent lifestyle yourself, hold yourself accountable. Do not hesitate to do things, because you need to approach professors aggressively. You need to approach professors for teaching assistantships. because only doing the bare minimum is not going to help. If you apply on a standard portal, everyone is applying there. You need to do something to make yourself stand apart. Apart from it, maybe having more curiosity about research, a good research profile will be able to get into UCSD, I feel, or being affiliated with good companies, good institutes does help. So I know people who probably lack on research but have covered up well enough because they have been, they have either had work experience at great companies or they were students at good institutes. I feel that really helps. But that's not the end of the road. As someone who was not from a tier 1 college, I feel with good research experience, good standardized test scores, you can definitely get in here.
For sure. So it was great talking to you today, Pratik. I hope you have a nice day. Really informative video here. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Ansika, and thanks a lot, College Dunya, for having me. Wishing all the best for all the aspirants.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye.